This is a podcast about both having autism and living with someone who has autism. My mom is Sonya, and I'm Josh, and this is Josh Has Autism.
Hey everybody, welcome to Josh Has Autism.
Hello.
So happy that you're here with us today.
Yeah, I hope everyone's doing okay too.
Yes, I hope so too. We are behind on this podcast today. So initially, I don't know if you know this, this was going to be a day that a different podcast came out. But, and I'm really excited about it because our friend is going to help us out and he's going to be a guest and I'm excited about it. So hopefully that'll be next week.
Yeah.
But this week, I felt like we needed to talk about what's actually happening right now in your life and in our lives.
Okay.
Because you got back SSI paperwork. You know, we heard back from Social Security. They got the I can't think of it. It was a denial initially, and then we appealed it. Thank you. We appealed it. So anyway, little bit about that stuff. But I want to talk. That spawned something else. That spawned another conversation that I had that really made me want to talk to you about some things. And that is that during a conversation that I had with a really good friend of mine, she said to me, "You can't save everybody." And that made me think, like instantly, that I'm not trying to save everybody, but for 31 years now I've been trying to save you.
What do you mean?
Well, I think the reason that this Social Security stuff came up and kind of triggered this conversation that I had with my friend was that because it's constantly been me making decisions on your behalf and me seeing, you trying to see anyway, like just ahead of you, down the road so that where are you headed? What are you doing? What are you capable of? What do you need help with? What do you, it just feels like all the things that parents do when they have young kids. And it just has continued.
Yeah.
And there's been times where I ask you questions, what do you want to do about this? What do you want to do about that?
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately I have to make the decision. And maybe I say ultimately, that's the way it has been. Mm-hmm. I guess that's what I'm going to talk about today. Is that the way it still needs to be?
Okay.
Because there's an awful lot of, what I mean by I ask you, there's an awful lot of decisions that need to be made constantly. And a lot of times when I ask you what you need and what you want, sometimes there's kind of ambivalence.
Ambivalence.
Yes, on your part. And it's really hard to, just go, okay, we don't know. Mm-hmm. So you can't move forward without knowing constantly. So I've been making decisions.
Right.
So when it comes to planning for the future, this has really got me thinking about an awful lot. And so I wanted to know what it is that you want in life. What is it that you want to do?
You're going to have to be a little bit more specific.
I figured.
Like, what do I want to do as a career?
Yeah, let's start there.
Okay. For one thing, I'd love to work in a library.
Mm-hmm.
Not as a head librarian,
mm-hmm.
but just being around the books and everything and just that kind of setting
mm-hmm.
is soothing to me.
Right. And it's consistent.
Yes.
So I think that in regards to that, the books don't change their story. You might gain a perspective,
mm-hmm.
but the book's consistent.
Yeah.
And reliable. And even the process, of how you handle books, where you place them, what order they go in.
That's just it. They have a particular set of order.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very defined.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it a lot easier to not just find them, but know where to put everything.
Mm-hmm. There's been times that you've had a job in the past, and do you think that those jobs didn't work because it wasn't what you really wanted to do? Or can you look back at it and go, well, these traits that you have due to autism led to a particular difficult time?
I'd say a little bit of both, but more the latter.
Okay. How about if I ask you a couple questions?
Okay.
So you've had jobs that had some routine in them,
Mm-hmm.
but there were an awful lot of variables.
Oh, yeah.
And the variables really bother you.
Yes.
And so it's not just people that don't follow rules, but when those rules are not clearly defined,
Yeah.
and guidelines even, so we don't have to say rules, but if there's guidelines, if there's policies,
Mm-hmm.
you need for those to be consistent.
Yes.
And you need for the response and then reaction to be consistent.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And you feel like working in a library is going to be different?
Yeah. Because the only variable with that would be the people.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you've narrowed it down.
yeah.
And books are your favorite thing in the world, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned before, you did apply, and the virus shut everything down.
Mm-hmm.
And you are still going to look into that, and I'm assuming apply for more library jobs.
Yes.
Yeah. So what else? So that's the main job that you'd love to have.
Yes.
And
Another thing I'd like to do is I'd like to be doing all these speeches.
mm-hmm.
Whether it's in conjunction with another job or not, that's something I want to do because I can help people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do here in the podcast, but
Right.
yeah.
So do you want to, and we have talked about that. So, and you've said before that you prefer to do the speeches with me,
Mm-hmm.
but it could be something maybe that you grow into it and you
Yeah.
do it on your own. I can really see you being successful doing that.
Yeah.
What do you want in your life? Here's why I'm asking you specifically. These are not random questions. Here's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
All right. That all these papers that I'm having to fill out, they're bringing up all kinds of emotions in me. You
have emotions? No. No, I'm sorry.
From the you're just not aware of them most of the time. Yes. So it brings up an awful lot of the things that I've done in the past, throughout your life,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that you're okay. And when you're a little boy, I made those decisions because I'm your mom, I'm the grown-up, I'm making those decisions for you.
Mm-hmm.
It gets pretty unclear sometimes. And do I make the decisions for you based on what I see, or do I base them on what you
believe I can do?
Right. And sometimes those two things are not the same thing.
Right.
And so that there's been times when you've said that you wanted to do something, and everything was all set up and ready for you to do that, and then you didn't do it.
Right.
And, you know, I'm just wondering what it is that you want to have in your life. What is like the if you could create this life, and you can, but if you could manifest whatever you wanted in your life, what would that be? What does that look like?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
A lot of times people have goals and they have dreams for the possibilities in their life. Sometimes when people are young, they have a clear idea of what they want to do, so they set out to, as far as the work life, so they set out to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is. Sometimes people are passionate about politics. They feel like they want to help people, and so they go into politics.
Mm-hmm.
Other people feel that they want to help people in a different way. They become nurses. They become doctors. Other people work on the environment, agriculture. And sometimes people are born into families, that they're born in, their family has a farm.
Mm-hmm.
So they know about that. Sometimes people, they really, really enjoy working on engines, so they become mechanics.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes people have a clear idea of what they want to do for a work life, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes even after somebody goes to college, they don't really know. And sometimes after they go to college, they realize, oh, I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I have, countless friends that have, gone to college and became lawyers and then go, I'm going to be a comedian. They were very good.
Yeah.
But what's the difficult part about all this is that when I'm asked the question, like in this paperwork that I've been having to deal with, they wanted to know facts about you. They're wanting to know basically the everyday life and what you're capable of doing. And
so they want to know how random I can be at times or something?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I think they want to, on the flip side of that, they want to see how consistent you can be. And
Okay.
if you're consistent, you can work.
Right.
And that's never been the issue, right? You not wanting to work has never been the issue.
Right.
It's all of the nuances and the sensitivities that you have, the sensory overload that takes place.
Mm-hmm.
But when people are asking these questions throughout your life, there's been times where I come to you and say, what is it? What would you like? How do you feel about this? How do you think this is going? Are you able to handle this situation or that situation? And do you feel like you're improving? Do you feel like you need some help? In regards to not just paperwork that we're filling out, but when it comes to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to go, we've been trying this every other week. Do you need to go back to every week? How's your medication? Does it feel okay? What are you experiencing? So every step of the way, I include you. But what happens is that you are on SSI because you have autism.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're in tune with how your body feels, and you understand when there's too much information coming in and you need a break, you've gotten really good at those things. You've gotten good at looking people in the eyes.
Yeah.
You've gotten good at the learned superficial niceties.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, when I'm having to fill out paperwork, it's well beyond that scenario. And I'm having to decide things for you.
Like what? Like, can you give an example or
Yeah,
no?
I can give you a perfect example of right now today. This SSI that we're talking about, it's been something that you've been on for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't know at this point I filled out the appeal. It came back. They got the appeal. And now it's the next step. Is that what you want? And if I can say one more thing, throughout life, I ask you what you want. And then I've had to look at this like, okay, you participate. I want you to be happy. I want you to be okay. But historically, when I ask you something, you'll give me an answer, and the next day it's a different answer. Or the next day or down the road, I see that you weren't ready to make that answer, to come up with that answer.
Right.
Because you didn't look at it
close enough? Or thoroughly enough?
Maybe. Okay. Maybe, but maybe it's just how you look at things, and it's not really has not been helpful to know exactly what it is that you can do and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage you to grow, to stretch, to learn more about yourself and your capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
It's a scary thing to go, do you want to stay on SSI or do you want to get off of SSI, Josh? It's a scary thing to me because I see two parts of it. I see two sides of it.
Yeah. So do I.
What do you think about it?
For the most part, actually, nearly the entire part of me, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be on it.
Right. Okay.
With that said, with things the way they are right now, with me not having a job or anything,
mm-hmm.
Is it a good idea for me to be off of it?
Well, I think the question is,
like, am I ready for it?
Are you at this point in your life, do you think that you're going to be able to get a job, to go out into the world like that? And
right.
I mean, there's a reason that you've been on SSI. There's a reason for that. And it has been because the consistency required to maintain a job has been so difficult for you because your affect fluctuates so much day to day, not even day to day, hour to hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's
yeah.
And it's something that's real, and it's something that you deal with. And it's something that I worry about. But you know what? I don't want to make a decision and fill out all this paperwork and just, barrel into this and fight for you to have this if it's not what's best for you.
Right.
And then on the other hand,
there's multiple reasons for me to be off of it, though.
Let's hear it.
All right. First off, as it stands right now, I can only have $2,000 in the bank account. Mm-hmm. Up to.
Mm-hmm.
And that coupled with that I can only make so much money in a month without it affecting the SSI.
Well, with the SSI, even while you're on it, you've never made enough money to make it so that you were off of it. And when you did work, and the thing is that SSI does, they have, they use Ticket to Work, and they have different, it's an opportunity for you to work and, become successful so that you no longer need to stay on SSI. That it's built into the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good part of SSI, where they want you to work. You go to work, you make more than they allow you to make, and then you're off of SSI. That's very reasonable. It's very reasonable. So I understand you're looking, and I'm also like, I think that's pretty cool that you recognize that There's financial limitations if you're on SSI. Right. Okay. What else?
What was the question?
The benefits of being off of SSI. You were talking about that.
I'm not as constrained by their rules.
Okay. You can,
Like you know that I not love, but I need to have limitations and rules and things like that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But with SSI where it is right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's not stifling, but it's very
It's restricting.
limiting. Yeah.
Excuse me. You said limiting.
Yes.
I said restricting.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the reason why, excuse me, I think that's the reason why it's a very, very good conversation to have as to, it's not something that you want to stay on.
Right.
I mean, it's not really a plan. It's kind of like we're so grateful for it because it helps so many people, people that need the help.
Yeah.
And yet, it is true that if you're capable to be, if you don't have SSI, what are the possibilities then? They just open up,
Yeah.
And I guess that's the thing. Are we at a point where, their design is to make it so difficult, so complicated with this administration that we have in our country has put this out there. And they've made it so difficult and cumbersome to work through the process to stay on SSI.
Mm-hmm.
I will do that, and I have done that, and I will continue doing that if you want me to. And then I ask you that question, I make that statement, and it goes right back into the old patterns that I've been in since you were a little guy, which is, do I go by what you say this moment?
Or go by what I do.
Yes. So it's always this back and forth and
Yeah.
in my mind, what do you need? What is it? Just what actually do you need? What's best for you? What can you do? Is this holding you back? Am I holding you back?
You are not holding me back. I know that. You've always encouraged me to do my best and be the best that I can be.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to worry about that.
That's cool. Well, thank you. There's part of me that feels like SSI is just confining, and you're ready to fly, and you're ready to see what you can do.
Yeah.
And then there's that part of me that goes, oh, that's scary. What,
Yeah.
And we might not even have a choice about it because,
Yeah.
Social Security is going to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
But it brings up a really good point, as we plan for the future, which I've done this on your behalf since you got here, and that comes in different forms,
Mm-hmm.
But what's best for you? Where you are in your life right now?
Where I am right now, it kind of feels like I'm stuck or stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
And before this virus shut down everything, it seemed like I was on the right track to doing things better and everything. But then everything shut down, and it feels like I'm stuck again.
Right. Well, we're all stuck.
Yeah.
That's the truth. We all of us are going through that. So, but I do see that you haven't heard anything back about this position, and I think that this had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Because it's the government. It's for the local, city libraries, so it's government. They go slow anyway.
Yeah, and then it certainly didn't help when all non-essential things shut down.
Right.
That includes public access to the libraries.
Right. So do you think that should I not go into this battle? I mean, I feel like, again, no matter...
I think that
Do you have a thought?
I did.
Okay.
and yeah, it's gone now.
Okay. All right. This might just be something that we don't have any say-so over to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think what it's done is to really put in the forefront and brought conversations up where, look, this is something that, you've got to look at as a high probability here that, you're going to need to get a job.
Right.
And once things open back up again, there's going to be a lot of people looking for jobs. But, you're going to need to pay for your phone, for car insurance.
Yeah, once you get a car. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to be responsible for the things that you want to have in your life. It's not just that though. It's the whole concept of, I understand what you're saying, is that being on disability feels like at this point in your life, it might be time to just go, okay, it's a new phase, a new way of life, it's a new way of existing.
Yeah.
And what if it doesn't work? That's like that mom fear, right? That's in the back. Again, like I said, I've been concerned about you for all these years. You've been the one I've been trying to save.
Yeah.
And that's still part of it. It's still, how does this work? What does this look like? Can you do this? Are you ready to do this? Could be that even if you're not ready, you're going to have to be because,
right. Right.
On the other hand,
I think, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
I think that this was not just a thing that happened. I think that there's a reason for this. Mm-hmm. That it was time for me to be pushed. That it was time for me to be on top of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this couldn't have happened at a better time in my life.
Why is that?
At least so far, it couldn't have happened at a better time in my life.
Right. Why?
Because at this point in time, I think I'm if not prepared, then ready to try being off of SSI. And I mean, there's things that are in place here and now. Not in place, but there's opportunities here and now that I didn't have before. Like for work and different things like that. And that makes it that makes a lot of the pressure of should I do this or not ease off a bit.
Mm-hmm. It's a scary idea to let go of a safety net. And sometimes it's exactly what you need.
Yeah.
In order to move forward, in order to take those next steps.
Yeah.
Once you're off SSI, they have it kind of, it's harder to get back on.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's what we're still talking, so that here's what we know.
Mm-hmm.
That in your everyday life, you are sorry, that thing was going off. There we go. Needing prompting and directing on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Some things are not clicking. As far as you seeing that something needs to be done, it can be right in front of you and you don't recognize that action needs to be taken. And as far as your own time schedule, there's been some meltdowns there, so that's not quite working.
Meltdowns?
It's meltdowns, meaning things that you put in place are not being followed through on, and so for concrete, you don't get up in the morning when you are asked to set your alarm to get up, when you intend to set your alarm to get up, and it doesn't happen.
Right.
So then I have to come and wake you up. Those kinds of things are still happening. And when it comes to, getting a job, there's no way around that. You've got to be there when you're supposed to be there.
Right.
We just got some paperwork back from our insurance that has approved you getting, I think it's a total of 48 therapy sessions now.
Wow.
And so, maybe there can be that focus this time moving forward on how do you best control your disorganization. I was trying to say wandering. I'm like, it's not like you just wander, but to help you with organization skills. One thing that I know is that what's always been frustrating is that insurance doesn't really cover the social skills, and they don't really cover the life skills. So that's always been frustrating to me because, the TSS helped you through when you were in school, but as an adult, it would be so beneficial to have somebody to kind of show you a pattern. Yeah. That you could live by.
Yeah.
Because that's helpful. Because when it comes from me, it comes from your dad. You don't listen.
What?
Shut it.
No, seriously, what'd you say?
I said you don't listen.
Oh.
You looked at me like that, like you gave me that look like how when you're teasing me.
Oh, I actually didn't hear you. I'm kind of drifting at this point.
Okay.
So we should probably finish up the podcast soon. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. That's all right. This is just like kind of to recap here. It's a difficult thing to go through. Mm-hmm. If feeling like I've made the decisions for you your whole life with your input, and yet you have autism, you have ADD, and anxiety, depression, and
OCD.
OCD. So I feel like there are times when you give me answers and you absolutely believe the answer and you're sincere in your answer. And the next day, it's a whole different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I have always made decisions to help you to be safe and
just okay
with insurance and anything and everything else.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're both kind of feeling this tug that maybe it's time to move on off of SSI is a positive thing. It's also a scary thing.
Yeah.
And also too, I mean, it's not like this is just our decision. We might, you might just, what I'm doing here might not make a difference anyway. But it feels like it's a new chapter anyway. It just feels like that.
Yeah.
You are gone, aren't you? Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. That's all right. This is a difficult subject.
Yeah.
And it just, I thought it was an important one to have because essentially the date today is what? Today is April 18th. Well, we got the paperwork yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the 17th, telling us that we had to the 28th of April to provide all the paperwork with all the documentation that, that they want. And the virus has shut everything down. You can't just get into places and get documents and,
Right.
So, it doesn't make sense because they told us that after the initial documentation was filed, we would have months, all of the process itself would take months.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah.
But it really, the whole thing has me feeling worried as usual about you, but also really wondering if it's time. Like you said, is that at this point in your life, is it holding you back or is it helping you?
Right.
Because the very things that can be the biggest help, you can outgrow them and then they hold you back. And I understand that you're saying that you want to have a life. You want to do the things that matter to you and not have to be controlled by Social Security.
Right.
So, is there anything else? I know that you're wiped out. Is there anything else you want to say, and we'll wrap it up?
No.
No, you're done.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all right. It happens. All right. Well, okay then. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I really appreciate it. If you have any opinions about what we're talking about today, or if you're experiencing something like it, let us know. We love getting your emails. It means so much to us. You can find us on my website. It's sonyaking.com. It's SONYAKING. So we do the podcast every week. We used to come out on every Thursday, and then it just became easier to put out on Saturdays, but we do like Thursdays better. We'll see what happens there. But it just seems to, there's like been a glitch. Well, your dad is the one that puts it up, and then he goes to work, and so then on Saturdays he can do it, and it's just easier for him.
Yeah.
But if you would, if you like what we're doing, share it with people. Subscribe. And give us 5 stars wherever you can. I appreciate that. But anyway, this is a tough conversation. Josh and I are both kind of, he's wiped out from the conversation. I'm kind of tongue-tied during this podcast because it feels very overwhelming and uncomfortable. And I'm still angry at the Social Security Administration for their dishonesty. Yeah. And yet it feels like something has shifted And this could possibly be the point in time where Josh is ready for this. And all those possibilities come to mind, and then I get scared again about it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't want to live being scared of, okay, we're done. No more scared. Einstein says knock it off. Yeah. Well, we'll let you know what happens. We'll let you know.
Yeah.
But, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Love you.
Bye.